Alright guys, I went ahead and removed all the screws, removed my T-bar bumper, again from T-Bone Racing. The size Allen wrench I needed for these screws is a 5/64. Forgot to mention that at the beginning of the video. So I got that removed. I got the motor removed from the motor plate. The transmission is loose now, and basically all you end up doing at this point is you take a hold of the transmission, the motor plate, and pull up a little bit, and the whole transmission will slide out. I'm going to go ahead and move the truck out of the way so we can concentrate on this now. Okay. Okay. From here, you'll notice there are 4 screws on the transmission. Okay, you've got one shorter one and then 3 long ones that hold onto the motor plate. So we go ahead and remove those. I went ahead and loosened them before I started the video here to make it quicker. Okay, the 3 that hold in the motor plate just need to back off to the point to where they disconnect from the motor plate, and there's no more threads on those past that. Okay, motor plate comes off to the side, and then we loosen this one. This is what holds the rest of the case together here. Okay, now once you, I guess I forgot to loosen one. Once you get all of these screws out, the 2 pieces of the transmission case or the gearbox are actually going to just separate from each other here. No big deal. Okay. Again, make sure you keep the screws to the side, don't lose them. Alright. The case will come apart then. Alright. So, here's what we've got. You've got both halves of the case where the differential is, and that is going to be the 10 by 15 millimeter ball bearing inside of those. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and show you the gears as well. The differential itself pops completely out. You put that off to the side. And you've got the 2 gears. These are hardened gears. I've got the brushless gears in here. Okay. You've got the 2 10 by 15, excuse me, not 10 by 15, 5 by 10 millimeter bearings inside of this gear. Okay. Those will just pop right out. Alright, keep that off to the side. And you've also got the top shaft here. Okay, you're going to have 2 gears on it as well, also the same side. They're going to be 5 by 10 millimeter, so we're going to take those off as well. Okay, to get the gear out of the transmission box, you can use a flathead and just kind of pry a little bit on the side, and the bearing will come right loose. Same thing on the opposite side. Just a little bit of pressure on the inside of the ring, and you should be able to pop it right out. Okay. So I usually, whenever I take this apart, I'll go ahead and wipe it down just a little bit before I put anything else in there. Again, the bearings that I have are the orange seal, the dry variety, and I do not need any lube on them. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure around each of these bearings that it's pretty dry. It's not going to hurt anything if there's a little bit of lube left on here, but since they're dry bearings, I like to try to keep them that way. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the bearings in for each side of the differential. Okay, same thing as before. They should pop back into place. Just a minimal amount of pressure. Okay, and if the screws pop out, just make sure you keep the little washers on the top of those screws there. You need to keep those for the assembly again. Alright, I'm going to put that off to the side and get to the other bearings. These are going to be the 5 by 10 millimeter again. We should only have 4 left here. We've got 2 that go on either side of this gear. Yep, slippery little guy. And that shaft is going to go right in the center. Okay, put these off to the side. Alright guys, the last 2 bearings we're going to replace are the ones that are on the top shaft. Okay, again, the size is 5 by 10 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and remove the existing. Okay. Alright, one thing to note on these is either side of the gear, the top shaft gear here, is going to have a tiny little washer for spacing on the bearings. You're going to want to keep that in place. So make sure you keep them handy if they fall off. Okay. Alright. So if you notice here on the top shaft, this is the brushless version. They actually have a pin that goes through the shaft and that actually seats in the gear itself. Okay, so the washer here will keep the bearing just off of the gear, which is what you want, and the same thing on the other side. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just slide on the new bearings. Try to make sure you keep them straight as you put them on. They'll give you a little easier time going on. This is a tight fit though. And same thing on the back. Try to keep it straight. Okay, once you get it back together, obviously make sure that pin is seated in the gear correctly. And then you've got all your pieces to put your transmission and differential back in your gearbox. Alright, first thing we can do, doesn't really matter what side you want to do. You could do either side. I usually start with the side that's got the hole in it for the top shaft. Okay, go ahead and slide that through. The bearing's going to sit right down in the case itself. Okay, take your secondary gear here, make sure they match up. Drop it down, make sure the bearings are seated all the way. Make sure you have your other 10 by 15 bearing already in there. Drop your differential in. Make sure, again, the gears mesh up nicely. And then you can go ahead and put the case back on. Not a whole lot to it. Okay. And at this point, you want to go ahead and backtrack and just put the screws back in order. I start with the smallest one, the shortest one, because it's actually going to hold the case together. And then at this point, you'll go ahead and put the 3 long screws that go all the way through. And again, make sure you have the tiny washer on each one of these. Okay, and this is basically the same thing as before, just reverse order. You're just going to go ahead and screw these into the motor plate and go back from there. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you the process of putting it back together pretty quick. Alright, guys, I went ahead and put the gearbox back together and connected it to the motor plate. Again, it's the 3 screws, the long ones, and the short screw here on the side. One thing I want to note is I did use some Loctite to hold it together. Transmission takes a lot of abuse in this truck, especially if you go brushless. So make sure that you use a little Loctite if you have it. If not, you can use a little nail polish and a pinch on the screws. It'll kind of keep them in place a little better. Alright, from here I'm just going to go ahead and reassemble the truck and get it going again. So we'll have a new truck with a complete new set of bearings. Alright, transmission pops in place. Basically, there's the gearbox, the flat part of the bottom of the gearbox. There's a little indentation at the bottom of the truck here. You put that down first, push down, the bottom of the truck flexes, and then it lines back up again. At this point, you're just going to go ahead and reverse the procedure from before. We'll put in the 2 screws up top here, and then I'm going to go ahead and reconnect my motor plate, motor guard. Back here. Also, I'm going to reconnect my T-bar, which is the back bumper as well. And I'm going to go ahead and get that part done, and then I'll show you putting the CV shafts back on in just a minute here. Alright guys, went ahead and got the transmission and gearbox mounted back on the truck with the rear bumper, and in this case my T-bar from T-Bone Racing. I'm going to go ahead and put the slipper clutch back together again here. First step on brushless is the rear plate. Okay, and the shaft is actually notched, and both of the slipper plates have a notch in them as well. So you have to use their slipper if you're going to use this setup here. Alright, I went ahead and put back on my 32 pitch spur gear upgrade. Go ahead and put on the front part of the slipper plate here. Alright, and in my case, since everybody is still out of the part number I need, which is going to be the Duratrax slipper clutch or slipper spring assembly for the brushless EXT2. Went ahead and came up with another version that I could use. This is a 5mm lock nut. Went ahead and found a washer, a bushing, and a tension spring to fit. So this works for the time being till the other part comes in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down, put my pinion back on, mesh everything up together again. Then I'm going to go ahead and install the CV shafts, rear wheels, and that should be about it for today. So I'll be back with you in just a minute. Okay, just about at the last step here. I'm going to go ahead and place the CV shaft in. I've got the pinion and the spur gear meshed up. Alright, I went ahead and put the CV shaft and the other rear wheel on the opposite side. So all I have left is this one here. Go ahead and place the end of the shaft in the differential cup, and actually we'll place the place the shaft in the wheel hub first. Then we'll go ahead and pull it up to get into the differential cup. At this point, all you need to do to keep it in place is bring your turnbuckle back down, make sure it sits on that cup well, and should be able to just snap it right back in. Okay, at this point you'll notice again you've got the pin, and you've also got a tiny little washer. Alright, so we slide the washer on. This is a spacer for the pin, and then you go ahead and you'll put the pin back in, and then the rear wheel on. That's going to take me a second with the needle nose here, so I'll go ahead and stop the tape, and we'll get going from there. I'll show you what the finished product is here in just a minute. Thanks. Alright guys, just a quick recap. Here is the assembled truck. This again is a Duratrax Evader EXT2. I've got it set up as a brushless. We went ahead and replaced all the stock bearings with ceramic today. We had two 3/16 by 3/8 inch in each of the front wheels, so a total of 4. We had the rear wheel hubs. Each of the hubs back here had two 5 by 10 millimeter bearings. We also had the differential, the gearbox, and the transmission assembly here. We had two 10 by 15 millimeter bearings on either side of the differential, and then we had 4 5 by 10 millimeter bearings inside the rest of the transmission on the top shaft and the idler gear and whatnot. Went ahead and swapped all those out to full set of ceramic bearings from Boca Bearings, and here is a finished product. Obviously, you can't take it out and test it right this second. It's a little dark out, but I will be making some test runs soon. But the installation is fully complete, and I can't wait to run this thing. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoy.